Hello and welcome to the Intentional Brief, your weekly video update on the one big thing in cybersecurity for middle market companies, their investors, and management teams. I'm your host, Shay Colson, managing partner at Intentional Cybersecurity, and you can find us online at intentionalcyber.com. Today is Monday, December 30th, and it would seem like we're all ready to bring in 2025 and leave 2024 behind us. So instead of looking back at the year that was, I thought we might spend a couple of minutes today looking ahead at the year that is coming and offer a few projections, not predictions, about cybersecurity in 2025. Before we jump into that, however, just a quick note by way of update that our friends at Blue Yonder have not updated their incident page for more than 2 weeks now, approaching 6 weeks overall for this open incident. And I don't raise this issue to wag my finger at them or rub their face in what's happening, but just to remind all of us that the actual impact of these events is far greater than we might like to imagine them, and certainly far longer from a duration perspective than we plan for in our tabletops. So keep that in mind. Projections 2025. So I'm a little hesitant to do predictions. I'm plenty happy to leave that game to Scott Galloway and others in the tech space. But I do think some projections around the year ahead can be helpful, particularly for those of us who are in charge of planning and executing cyber efforts at our organization. So I'm going to cover 3 core ones that I think are worth keeping on your radar screens in 2025 here today. Always happy to chat either on LinkedIn or directly about others or about any of the things that you see as being relevant. So without further ado, let's jump right in. The first one, ransomware remains a reality. I think we would all love to get this idea of ransomware behind us, but the reality of ransomware is that it is not going anywhere and it is not going away in 2025. In fact, in many ways, I can see it likely to continue to grow and intensify in terms of impact in the year ahead. Despite getting some recent news as we close out 2024 of an arrest in Israel of an alleged Lockbit team member, we're also seeing new groups spring up like Play and Fog, and also old groups come back using new 0 days. I'm thinking particularly about Clop with their 66 plus new victims using the Clio 0 day that was discovered just a couple of weeks ago. So from a projections standpoint, the thing that you need to keep in mind is just try and reduce your exposure to ransomware, because that effort is going to remain relevant for the year ahead, perhaps even more so than it has been in the past. Second projection for 2025, getting the reps in matters most. So building on this previous point around reducing ransomware risk, the real way forward here is to get the reps in for those mechanics that actually do this. As folks are busy maybe making New Year's resolutions around fitness and health, much of those same analogies apply here in the cyber world. So what do I mean by reps? These are things like having an asset inventory that you can trust, regularly scanning for vulnerabilities, being able to push updates to your machines in a reasonably short amount of time. These are the things that are going to help you when you have a newly discovered vulnerability in your environment, when you have an incident or an event starting to turn into an incident kicking off. Being able to quickly understand, update, and respond to your infrastructure and endpoint issues is going to be very important, and you can't put those reps in during live fire. You need these tools, processes, people, communications, other things in place before the big one hits, which means getting those reps in ahead of time. That also means things like enrolling devices into Intune, making sure that MFA is everywhere for everyone every time, that your backups are actually backing up and that you know how to restore from them, etc. These reps, like reps in the gym, are not glamorous in and of themselves, and doing it once is not going to make you anything but sore and uncomfortable, but getting them in regularly over time will make a difference for you both in the gym and in cybersecurity. The third and final projection for 2025 is about regulations, and that is this. Regulations are not coming in 2025, and they are not going to save you. Given what we've seen from the incoming administration here in the US, it seems highly unlikely to me that we're going to get any new federal legislation or regulation that has cyber impacts in the next year. There might be some slight updates, something like an OCR update for HIPAA from the Department of Health and Human Services, but if you're looking to a codified, unified federal cyber regulation in 2025, that is probably not going to happen. If you already operate in a regulated industry like financial services or healthcare, it's going to be pretty much steady state. There will be some state level things that happen, of course, but in terms of this one ring to rule them all approach, I do not see that happening in 2025. So again, this can be a double-edged sword. On the plus side, it means that you might not have to scramble to meet this new onerous regulation, as we saw companies have to do with some SEC filings when those rules were rolled out. But on the challenging side, it also means you're not going to have those mandatory regulatory obligations to use as a driver for budget, change management, and other things. So again, in 2025, I do not see the regulation being the silver bullet or the one ring to rule them all from the federal level, at least. I do expect state level privacy regulations to continue, and those will be a little difficult to navigate if you're exposed to a whole range of them. So I think when I look at the overall theme for 2025, it seems clear to me that it's really just recognizing that you are on your own out there and you need to develop a sense for your organization of self-sufficiency in terms of managing cyber risk to a level that you're comfortable with. It is in the end up to you to run your defensive playbook for your organization, for better or for worse. And I know that's not a particularly positive or sunny disposition to take as the year ends here, but I'm of the mind that we should be practical with our assessments and realistic about our threats. And so this is going to be hard. 2025 is going to be a hard year for cyber. Like every year before us, it is the biggest year for cyber budgets and it is the biggest year for cyber attacks. That is not going to change, but knowing ahead of time that it is going to continue gives us a chance to prepare. And so that said, we'll be covering all of those issues here on the Intentional Brief in 2025 and beyond, and defenders who are in this together trying to share knowledge and best practices. So stay tuned to the channel, stay vigilant, and if you need anything else, you can find back issues and links to the articles that we've covered below, transcripts and previous editions at intentionalcyber.com. And we will see you next week for the first 2025 edition of the Intentional Brief. Happy New Year, everybody.